The coffee pot was half empty when the men in tailored suits kicked the diner doors open, guns already drawn. They expected the bleeding mob boss in the corner booth to die quietly. They didn't expect the heavyset waitress in the stained apron to pick up his gun and shoot first. The neon sign in the window of the Blue Moon Diner had a short in the letter O. It buzzed, a low electric hum that had been driving Delphine slowly insane since her shift started at 10. It was 3:14 in the morning, the witching hour, when the only people still awake were the ones paid to be, or the ones up to no good. Delphine fell into the first category. She leaned against the back counter, closing her eyes, shifting her weight off her aching left foot. Her rubber-soled work shoes offered zero support. Delphine was a big woman, carrying her weight in broad hips and thick thighs, and she knew exactly how much space she took up in the world, mostly because the world never stopped reminding her. She was tired in the way that settles into your joints after 9 years of pouring bad coffee for drunks and insomniacs at 3 in the morning. The bell above the door chimed. She opened her eyes and pasted on a look of mild professional apathy. The man who walked in didn't belong in the Blue Moon. Dark charcoal overcoat, tailored suit, wool that looked expensive even under the harsh fluorescence. But he wasn't walking with the arrogant stride of someone who'd taken a wrong turn. He leaned heavily to the right, his left arm pressed tight against his ribs, and made a straight, uneven line for the back booth, sliding in, with a barely audible hiss of pain. Delphine grabbed a stained menu and a pot of decaf. As she approached, the metallic scent hit her before she saw it. His face was sharp angles and bruised shadows, pale to the point of gray, dark hair damp with cold sweat. Beneath his left hand, dark crimson was soaking into the wool of his coat, threatening to drip onto the vinyl seat. She stopped at the table. He looked up. Eyes dark, flat, remarkably calm for a man actively bleeding onto her clean floor. Menu, coffee. His voice was gravel, black. She didn't scream. Panic was for people who had the luxury of someone swooping in to save them. "You're bleeding on the upholstery, buddy." She poured. "I have to scrub that with bleach if it stains." He blinked, genuine surprise breaking through the pain. "My apologies." He reached into his pocket with agonizing slowness and tossed a crumpled $100 bill onto the table. "For the cleaning fee. Coffee's $2.50. I don't have change for $100. Keep it. I'm not a bank, and I'm not a hospital." She set the pot down. "Do I need to call an ambulance? The cops?" "Neither." His jaw tightened. "Just the coffee. And ice, if you have it." She stared at him for a long, quiet moment. He wasn't a random mugging victim. Nobody wore a $3,000 suit and bled out in a diner without being wrapped up in something deep and ugly. "Don't die in the booth," she said finally. "The paperwork's a nightmare." She came back with crushed ice wrapped in a dish towel and dropped it on the table. "Press that against it." His hand brushed her knuckles as he took it, freezing. "Thank you. I'm Victor." "Delphine." She grabbed the empty sugar caddy off the next table. "Drink your coffee, Victor. Then you're leaving. I don't want trouble in my diner." "Neither do I," he breathed, eyes closing. 30 minutes passed. The diner stayed empty, save for the hum of the broken sign. Victor hadn't moved, his head resting against the window glass, watching the street. Delphine was about to tell him to leave when the atmosphere shifted, not a sound at first, a pressure drop. A black SUV pulled onto the curb, headlights slicing through the blinds, throwing long shadows across the checkered floor. Victor sat up fast, wincing, the lethargy gone, replaced by sharp, terrified animal focus. He drew a matte black pistol from a shoulder holster, hand shaking badly from blood loss. "Hey," Delphine warned. "No guns in here." "Get down, Delphine. Now." The doors didn't chime. They crashed open. 4 men fanned into the diner, in terrifying synchronization, 3 with suppressed pistols, already raised toward the back booth. The one in the center wore a tan trench coat, scarred chin, pale dead eyes. "Victor." His voice was conversational, almost bored. "You led us across town just to die in a greasy spoon." "Go to hell, Reyes." Victor's words lost their bite to his ragged breathing. Reyes raised his weapon. Victor tried to bring his own gun above the table. Too slow. Crack. The suppressed shot clipped Victor's wrist. His hand opened involuntarily. The gun slid across the linoleum and stopped against the rubber toe of Delphine's shoe. "Well," Reyes sighed. "Disappointing." His eyes drifted to Delphine. "Hey, big girl, do yourself a favor. Get in the kitchen. Face on the floor. I see so much as a shadow move. I put a bullet in you. Understand?" The others chuckled, low and cruel. Delphine didn't move. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at their cold eyes, the casual way they held their weapons. Professionals, cleaners. Cleaners didn't leave witnesses. The realization came with icy clarity, not hysteria. Society had told her she was slow and weak her whole life. But she'd survived a decade of graveyard shifts in the worst part of town. She hauled 50-pound flour sacks. She broke up knife fights between truckers. She wasn't weak. She was a tank. Reyes leveled his gun at Victor's chest. "Say goodnight, boss." Delphine dropped into a squat, thick thighs absorbing her weight, and closed her hand around the grip of Victor's gun. Heavy. She stood, planted her feet wide, gripped it with both hands. Reyes never saw her move. She fired. The noise was apocalyptic. The recoil slammed into her palms, traveled up her wrists, but her frame absorbed it like a shock absorber. She barely swayed. The bullet caught Reyes square in the chest, throwing him backward into the pastry case, in an explosion of glass and crumbs. Time stopped. The remaining gunman froze, brains failing to process the geometry of what had just happened. Delphine's ears rang, vision narrowing, but survival screamed louder. She racked the slide, hoping to God she'd done it right, and swung toward the second man. "Get down!" she screamed at them, not at Victor. They didn't get down. The man on the left raised his weapon. She fired again. He pitched forward, clutching a shattered kneecap, hitting the floor screaming. The last 2 scattered. One dove behind a booth. The other backpedaled toward the shattered door, firing wild. A bullet punched the coffee machine beside her head, spraying scalding water. She flinched, ducking behind the counter. Silence, except for hissing steam and the buzz of the broken sign. "Jesus Christ," Victor whispered from the booth. "I told you," she panted. "No guns in my diner." She stayed curled under the counter, cold linoleum biting her knees. "Waitress," Victor rasped. "It's Delphine." "Delphine. The one behind the booth's reloading. You've got maybe 3 seconds before he flanks you." Panic spiked, sharp and cold. She looked at the gun. "I don't know how to do this." Boots crunched on broken glass, unhurried, pacing along the far side of the counter. "Fat bitch," the man yelled, voice cracking with fear and rage. "I'm gonna gut you like a hog." The insult didn't make her cry. After a lifetime of every variation of it, the words just made her deeply exhausted, and the exhaustion mutated into something hot and blinding. She wasn't dying on the floor of a diner that paid her $9 an hour. Using the lowboy fridge handle, she hauled herself up, Her hand brushed the coffee station, a full glass carafe, piping hot, sitting untouched on the burner. Footsteps squeaked at the edge of the counter. She dropped the gun onto the cutting board and grabbed the carafe with both hands. The gunman rounded the corner, pistol raised, expecting her cowering on the floor. Instead, he found a woman standing 5'10", solid, blocking the aisle like a wall. He hesitated, adjusting his aim. Delphine swung the carafe, driving the thick glass bottom into his face with the full momentum of her upper body. Cartilage crunched. A gallon of boiling coffee washed over his face and neck. He shrieked, hands flying to his scalded eyes, weapon dropping, boots slipping in the mess. She snatched the gun off the cutting board, leveled it, fired. The bullet caught his shoulder, spinning him into the swinging kitchen doors, where he crumpled and went still. Silence slammed back into the room. Delphine kept the gun raised, sweat cutting tracks through powdered sugar dust on her cheeks. She checked the front door. The fourth man was gone. Through the shattered window, she watched taillights tear away from the curb and vanish into the grid. She lowered the gun. Her arms felt like lead. She stood alone in the wreckage. The pastry case obliterated, cherry filling mixing with Reyes's blood on the tile. One man unconscious near the jukebox, another wedged in the kitchen doors. She let out a long, shaking breath, clamped a hand over her mouth against a wave of hysterical laughter, and pushed it back down. She stepped over the glass and walked back to the booth. Victor was slouched against the vinyl, eyes closed, the towel soaked through. She dropped the gun onto the table with a heavy clunk. His eyes fluttered open, taking in the soot on her cheek, the steady, unblinking way she looked at him. "They're gone," she said flatly. 3 down, 1 ran. He coughed, wet and rattling. "You didn't dump the magazine." "I don't even know what that means." She slid into the booth, grabbed the bloody towel, pressed it hard against his side. He grunted, but didn't pull away. "Means you didn't run out of bullets." He swallowed. "Where'd you learn to shoot?" "I didn't. I just pointed it at the guys trying to kill me." She pressed harder. "You need a hospital, Victor. You're gray." "No hospitals. Cops ask questions." His head lolled against the glass. Reyes was a problem. Now he isn't. Police won't see it that way. "I just shot 3 men." The reality finally seeped into her bones, hands starting to shake against his side. "I killed a man in my diner." He reached out with his good hand, cold and smeared with his own blood, and wrapped it around her wrist, surprisingly strong. "Look at me, Delphine." She did. "You didn't kill a man. You killed a rabid dog that kicked down your door. You defended your territory." A breathless, pained laugh. "You stood your ground. Most men I know would have pissed themselves and died under that counter. You planted your feet. I'm just big. It's hard to miss me." Being heavy didn't pull the trigger. His voice softened. "You did. You're a tank, Delphine. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." For the first time in years, someone was acknowledging her size, not as a punchline, not as a failure, but as a fact, a tactical advantage. She had anchored herself to the earth when the world exploded, and she had survived. Headlights swept across the diner. She tensed, reaching for the gun, but Victor weakly pushed her hand down. "Mine." 2 black town cars pulled up. 4 men in dark suits moved with quiet, urgent efficiency, stepping over Reyes's body without a second glance. "Mr. Ashford." The older one's eyes flicked to Delphine, with concealed shock. "We need to move." "Yeah." Victor looked at her. "Let go." She pulled her hands back, covered in his blood. They hauled him up between them. He groaned, but stayed upright. At the door, He stopped them, reached into his ruined coat with his good hand, and pulled out a thick bundle of bills held with a rubber band, tossing it onto the table, into the spilled coffee. For the cleaning fee. Delphine stared at the brick of cash. 50,000, maybe more. Victor. What am I supposed to tell the cops? He offered a tight, bloody smile. Tell them a man named Reyes came in to rob the register. Slipped on a wet floor. Gun went off. By the time my men are done in here, the police won't find a shell casing or a drop of blood that isn't his. He nodded to the others, already dragging the wounded men out the back, tossing weapons into a canvas bag. And the others? There are no others. He held her eyes. You saved my life tonight, Delphine. This diner is under my protection now, forever. They carried him out into the night. Delphine stood in the empty diner as the cleanup crew worked like ghosts, scrubbing linoleum, hauling out bodies, wiping counters. Within 10 minutes, they were gone. Only the shattered pastry case and the smell of bleach masking copper remained. She walked behind the counter, ran the cold water, stuck her hands under the stream, and watched the dark red wash down the drain. Above her, the broken neon sign finally gave out entirely, plunging the front of the diner into shadow. She dried her hands on her apron, walked to the table, and picked up the brick of cash, shoving it deep into her pocket. Then she grabbed a rag and started sweeping up the glass. Her shift wasn't over until 6. The diner is quiet now, but the story is just beginning. What happens when the underworld realizes the most dangerous person in the city is a graveyard shift waitress who refuses to take anyone's garbage? If you want to see where Delphine's story goes next, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel.